on. Let's see, this is the first time I'm trying to tell, be on both, be on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, on all the things. So this is the first time for me. I'm a little nervous, but I wanted to do this live to sort of have a conversation. I know it's so difficult when friends are all over the world and we really can't have a chat. So the purpose of this Q&A is to try as much as possible to answer questions or curiosities regarding my Paris Je t'aime quilt, talk a little bit about the design, talk a little bit about the evolution of the entire project, how I approached the design component, how I approached the quilting component, and really to answer any questions you have. Again, my name is Veruschka Zarate of Pride and Joy Quilting, and I love quilting and sharing with friends. And so the whole purpose again of this live is to answer questions regarding my latest pattern, which is Paris Je t'aime. Now, something very special on this live is that my husband is right in between my two cameras and he's going to he's going to throw and filter questions and throw them at me, because if I start reading, I get very distracted and I want to be able to answer your questions as attentively as I can. So I see lots of people are plugging in. We'll probably give it a couple more minutes for friends to join. It wasn't until last night that I realized that the 3 o'clock here in California, which is Pacific Standard Time, is actually really late for our friends, our quilting friends in the UK and France. And I actually got a couple of messages saying if I could do another or if this would be recorded. So this will be recorded and can be referenced at a later time. So again, if you have any questions or either about this process or about the quilting or about the classes, please feel free to put them in the comments, and then my gracious husband, who's right there, will send them my way. So a good place to start again is at the beginning. So it's an interesting journey how every project comes to life. Sometimes a project comes to life because you want to process certain things, right? And when you process certain things, there are certain motifs or subjects that sort of help you do that. Other times, my source of inspiration kind of comes from, I have this objective, right? I have a workshop or a class. What kind of project could I do that would fulfill the needs of that particular goal that I have in mind? This particular project, at first, there wasn't going to be a custom pattern for the Paris event in November. In less than 20 days, is it less than 20 days? I'm going to be at the Atelier Florentine in Montmartre in Paris. She is a modern quilter who has a heart for all crafts, but in particular quilting. And she's going to be starting a sort of modern quilt guild or group in Paris. And so this has been many years in the making, actually. We met online a couple years ago and then met in person for the first time at the show in Nantes, which is a quilting show in the city of Nantes in France. And it's called Pour l'amour du fil, which means for the love of thread. But there is an interesting quilting dynamic in France that has been an education for me in the several times that I've gone. One is that oftentimes, or these are just my takes on it, right? That oftentimes in France, quilts tend to be a little more traditional. They tend to be sewn by hand. And the motifs also tend to be a little more traditional in scape. But there's a movement now, I think, where quilts are becoming more modern, works in textiles are becoming more modern, and so it's an exciting opening of the quilting world with a lot of American influence, I think. So it's been a wonderful evolution for me, becoming educated on the culture of French quilting and how, you know, I can, if anything, contribute to that. So after we set this workshop in Paris, originally we were just going to do one of the 12 different landscapes quilts that I have from the Capturing Memories landscape series. Originally, that landscape series was only going to be one quilt, and it quickly turned into 4, because you need 4 to make a project, right? And then that turned into 9, and then to 12, and I thought I was done with landscapes. But there is something very grounding about place and location. You know, oftentimes when someone introduces themselves, they'll say, you know, my name is, you know, Carla, and I'm from Ecuador, or my name is Paul, and I'm from Wales, right? Who we are is very much grounded in where we are from. And I think that's the power of landscape quilts. And so I was inspired to do a landscape quilt of Paris. Now, for those of you who have been or would like to go, Paris is a lot. Like, when I think of the big cities here in the United States, we do have some landmarks that identify certain cities. I'm here near Los Angeles, and there are some landmarks that you would definitely look at and think, oh, that's LA, or that's New York, or that's Miami. But oftentimes they're not as prominent. Whereas in Paris, there's a lot, right? They have such a rich history. And so I thought at first, well, maybe I'll just focus on one thing, because at the end of the day, it's a workshop, right? So it can't be a hi, tasty Tobes. Thank you everyone who has joined. If you have a question, please put it in the comments. My husband is here and he will throw them my way. Oftentimes I get distracted with the questions, and then I forget what I'm saying. So back to the project. So I thought at first, well, maybe I'll just do like one landmark, right? Because there's so much in Paris or in the surrounding city. You have the different neighborhoods, right? The different neighborhoods that make up Paris, which is actually in the form of a snail. So it starts in the middle and then it goes out. You have the Seine that runs through the city. You have the Eiffel Tower and the Arc de Triomphe. And so there's all of these monuments. And one of the things that I struggle with is editing. Like, I could just keep, bonsoir, Caroline. One of the things that I have a hard time with is editing design. So I could just keep going and going and going and going and going. And actually, one of the things at the very end of when I finish quilting this, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, is, oh shoot, I should have added, I don't know if you can see here, but I said to my husband, I should have added like a lamp post because there's so many beautiful lamp posts in Paris. But again, I thought, okay, this isn't a show quilt, this is a workshop quilt, and how can we bring Paris to life? And so I began to print different monuments from my computer, and I had them up on a design board, and I kind of started laying them out, right? Just printed photos of the different monuments. So there were a couple things that I had in mind. Number one, this is for a workshop. So Veruschka, take it easy on the editing part, right? If it gets too complex, then students often feel like it's unachievable. And it's not, complexity doesn't mean that it's harder to do. What it oftentimes means is that it will just take you longer to complete, right? The difference between like finishing one 9 patch versus 20, right? It's an issue of time. And so the more complexity there is, the longer something will take for you to make. And so I knew in my mind, okay, Veruschka, edit how complex it'll be. So I knew I wanted to do monuments. I knew I had to keep it as simple as possible with straight lines. And then one of the things that I'm constantly challenged with is keeping the sewing as simple as possible. So with this, I think there's a question that says, what's the question, honey?
What sewing techniques are involved in this piece?
Yes. So what sewing techniques are involved in this piece is a question. Who's the person who asked?
Sunshiny Moon.
Sunshiny Moon. So what are the techniques in this particular pattern? So this is quite exciting, and this is a new approach for me in pattern writing. So this is a dual technique quilt, which means, of course, there's foundation paper piecing. Most of this, I would say 85% of this quilt is foundation paper piecing. But because there are so many elegant curves in the architecture of Paris, I didn't want a student or a quilter to have to do a gazillion seams to create a curve. And so I thought, can I incorporate applique into FPP to create a combination of two techniques that'll really have a lovely finish? So you have the structural element of the foundation paper piecing being the foundation of this quilt, with little touches of the elegance of applique. So all of the curves in this quilt pattern is applique. Now, so that was new for me, right? Not applique was new for me, but writing a pattern that's a dual technique. So I really wanted, when someone purchases my pattern, and in particular the kit, which we'll talk about in a little bit, to have everything they needed to make the applique component. I'm assuming at this point when someone sees my work that they know there's going to be some foundation paper piecing in it, because it's like my fave. So that, that's already kind of done. You have to have some understanding of foundation paper piecing. But I wanted, when someone got the pattern, to have all of the tools and resources they would need to do the applique component. So I recorded 3 tutorials that are free on my YouTube of 3 different ways to approach applique. And I did this for a couple of reasons. One, 8, 9, 10 years ago when I was learning to quilt, and I happened on applique, which is one of the primary techniques in quilting. For some reason, I only learned one way. And it wasn't until several years later that I realized, wait a second, there are multiple ways to do applique, number one. Number two, different approaches to applique can fill different needs. And so I wanted someone who would get my pattern to have at least 3 different approaches in 3 different choices or flavors of applique to choose from when making this quilt. So I did a tutorial, and there's a QR code in the pattern, and it's on my YouTube. One tutorial is from easiest to hardest. So the easiest, of course, is raw edge applique, right? Which is essentially you have fabric that you adhere to fusible webbing, and essentially it makes like a fabric sticker that you then iron on to a foundation of a fabric piece, right? So that's the easiest way to approach applique, is raw edge applique. So in this quilt, I utilized all 3. And so in my classes, I'll talk about what are the pros and cons of all the different approaches of applique. So the first, of course, is the easiest, is raw edge applique, which is essentially making a fabric sticker. The second, which is sort of like an intermediate approach to applique, is sew in applique, where you have interfacing. Typically it's ultra lightweight interfacing, and that can be fusible or non-fusible. And fusible essentially means that the interfacing, which is a very light type of fabric, it's not really fabric, it's interfacing. It's like, oh, I have a sample here. So you have 2 forms of interfacing. You have fusible and non-fusible. And then you have a slew of weights, which means you have from very lightweight to very heavyweight fusible. And for applique, you tend to want to use ultra lightweight interfacing. So interfacing comes in fusible and non-fusible, woven and non-woven. I tend to prefer non-woven non-fusible interfacing. So what that means is when it's not woven, there won't be any give in the interfacing, so you won't have any stretching happening. And I prefer to not use fusible, which is the interfacing that has the glue dots, because it gets everywhere. And if you iron on the wrong side, then you're kind of in some hot water. Where if you use non-woven ultralight interfacing and you sew it in, you turn it inside out, then you can just use some light glue dots along the edge, and that'll do the trick to stick it on. So we have raw edge applique, we have sew in applique, and probably a little more advanced applique is edge turned applique. Now, there are many ways to do edge turned applique. There's hand turned, needle turned applique. And then there is the starch method of turning the edges in applique, which is my favorite. And so all that to say that in the pattern, you have 3 tutorials that go in a very in-depth to the technique. So all of the curves in this particular quilt, I don't know if you can see it, are applique. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do is to at least, as much as I could, have one edge of the applique units be sewn into the FPP. So let me see if I can do this for. It's so hard to see things up close, isn't it? Okay, so let me give you an example. So here you have the Arc de Triomphe, right? So this top section, of course, is appliqued, but then this bottom section gets sewn in to the foundation paper piecing. So it creates a really tight finish, and that's what I was aiming for. How can you incorporate applique with foundation paper piecing? So that's the dual technique of this particular quilt. You have FPP and applique. And for I don't know if this will stay up. For the pattern, I wanted to delineate as clearly as I could where the applique lies on the units. Are there any other questions, honey?
Question, yes. How long did it take you to design?
I love that question. I was talking to my husband the other day that oftentimes I get asked, how long did a project take you? And truly sometimes I think what takes the longest is like the initial idea, like what are we even going to make? And I think oftentimes the design process itself is the longest, right? Where you chew on different ideas, like should I do a Paris quilt about landmarks, or maybe like Parisian art, or could I do there's so much that I could have been pulled in different directions, right? From the art to the artists to the gardens to focusing on just one place. And so for me, I'd say I'd say maybe about 3 or 4 months. I chewed on the different ideas of what I even wanted to do. Then I thought, well, colors. What are we going to do about colors, right? And I've said this before, but one of the challenges for me is, or one of the things that I enjoy is, can I take a complex composition or subject and reduce the number of colors used in it? Because I think there is great beauty in having something that's complex in its subject, but the colors are minimalistic in a sense. So this entire project really is just 3 colors, but there's a gradient of each of these 3 colors that turns it into 12. And creatively, artistically, the reasons why gradients are very important, especially in quilt work, is because it gives a sense of depth, right? So if you have, unless you're wanting to achieve a sort of minimalistic look, right? But typically with a landscape quilt where there is some needed dimension, you need a gradient to be able to give that sense of depth. So you'll see in the very front here you have very strong colors, and then at the very back you have very light colors, and that's to give this the sense of depth. Oh, my husband says there's a question.
Is it possible to make it in a larger size?
Yes, yes. So,
Repeat the question.
so the question is it possible to make this quilt in a larger size? Yes.
Just 5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes of...
No, that's the lady.
Oh, okay. Oh, hi, just 5 minutes. So you can actually make any pattern as large or small as you want simply by changing the ratio in which you print the pattern at. So number one, probably one of the most difficult questions to ask when you're creating a project is scale. How big or how small am I going to make this, right? This is a workshop quilt. Well, that's how it started, but it became its own beautiful thing. I didn't want it to be too small, but I also didn't want it to be too big where it felt overwhelming. So I kind of landed at 45 by 45 inches because it's big enough that you can kind of hang or carry around in Paris to take pictures. But it's not so small that you feel it's not significant enough. So the way you make it bigger or smaller is simply by printing the percentage at a larger or smaller size. And I actually have a video on Instagram somewhere where you just need to make a calculation. So if the original quilt size is 45 inches, that would equal 100. And let's say you want to make the quilt 60 inches. Then you need to calculate what X for 60 would be and print it at that percentage. So it would probably be, I can't do the quick math, 145%, something like that. So simply by increasing or decreasing the percentage at which you print at, you can increase or decrease the size. The key is two things. Make sure you print all of the puzzle pieces or units at the same time so that the puzzle fits. And number two, you will need to redraw the 1/4 inch seam allowance, because if you make the quilt bigger, the seam allowance is going to be bigger when you print it bigger, right? So just redraw the seam allowance to a 1/4 inch seam, whether you're making it bigger or smaller. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Rondi Reeves has 2 questions.
Rondi Reeves?
2 questions. What kind of batting do we use?
Batting to use?
Do we starch the fabrics prior to the workshop?
Oh, so someone's going to be so this is the project for Road to California as well. When we spend so much time on a project, it's nice to be able to teach as many people as possible. Batting wise, I tend to really like 80-20 cotton polyester. It hangs really well. I think it quilts out really well. I've tried bamboo. Bamboo is fantastic. Silk is fantastic. I haven't tried 100% cotton. I tend to like to have a little bit of poly in there to reduce the shrinkage. But it's preference. You could also do wool, which would make it really nice and fluffy, or you can do double batting to make it extra fluffy. So batting wise, I tend to like 80-20 for all my projects. Even my show quilts, I'll use 80-20. I've used bamboo a couple of times and I really like how it lays as well. Starch. That is up to you. So I talk about starch in my workshops. So let's talk about workshops. There are some students that love to do homework. Like they ask, is there anything I can do ahead of time? And if you want to do homework, you can, like starching your fabric, like cutting out your units. But in reality, you don't have to do homework. Once we get to the workshop, we hit the ground running. I give as much instruction as possible regarding organization, preparation, technique throughout. So it's really up to you. If you rather just kind of wait and come to the workshop and have instruction from there, that's perfectly fine. If you rather have some homework ahead of time, you're welcome to cut out the pieces, the units, organize them alphabetically, starch your fabric, but do not pre-cut your fabric into units, because we'll talk about that. So I hope that helps. How about Rio? Like in Rio de Janeiro? Você brasileira? Just 5 minutes, 2015. Yes, it would be nice to do a Rio de Janeiro one of these days. Was there a question? My husband's raising.
Kate Blash, the quilting you have created is beautiful. How can we as ordinary quilters create that?
Wonderful. So the question is the quilting. They liked the quilting, and how, as ordinary quilters, could they do that? Believe it or not, was that Kate? What was her name?
Kate Blash.
Kate, I'm an ordinary quilter. What I mean is, quilting is my least developed skill. So I'm actually, I say I'm not very good at it, but what I really say is it's my least developed skill. So this is the first quilt I really kind of went gung-ho with the quilting. I tend, because it's the least thing I've practiced, I tend to stick to some combination of straight line sewing, right? Whether that's horizontal quilting, matchstick quilting, because it sort of gives this disappearing act feel. Echo quilting I love, which is essentially you just follow a 1/4 of an inch. And I did some echo quilting here. Let me show you. So echo quilting is essentially when you just follow a 1/4 inch away from the seam, right? And originally that's what I was going to do. I was going to do just straight lines or some echo quilting. But then I thought, okay, this quilt, I think I could really challenge myself and do some computerized custom quilting on my Handy Quilter Amara. So I have a Handy Quilter 20-inch Amara that my husband and I invested in back in 2019. And then when I started working with Handy Quilter, they sponsored the Pro Stitcher, and I've been learning on that. I'm not very good at free motion quilting. I haven't practiced it very much. And I think for me personally with free motion quilting, if I don't do it perfect, I kind of freak out a little bit. So I thought, well, I guess this is the chance for me to learn how to do a little bit of custom work. And friends, I didn't, how do I put this? That was not the plan starting out, to do like custom quilting on this. It's just that as the quilt laid out, I thought, I could really add some incredible detail with the quilting. So one of the ways that you could do creative quilting is ruler work. You can use rulers on your domestic. You can, draw things out with a water pen, and on your domestic, do some figures. At the end of the day, it's what you feel comfortable with. But I don't want you to feel that you have to, go at 100% with all of the detail that I did on mine to make it look wonderful and beautiful. This was a first for me. I learned boatloads, but I think it turned out to be a fun experiment. So one of the things that I would recommend, was it Kate? I think it was Kate, is, so for example, here for the Paris, for the, I don't know if you can see it, for the Eiffel Tower, I did grid work, right? So if you look at this quilt, it's mostly like traditional motifs of quilting, but I changed it up. Oh, pause due to poor connection. Oh, shoot. Oh, okay, we're back. Essentially what I did were traditional quilting patterns that you would recognize, like zigzag or grid work or orange peel, right? And I changed it up within each different geometric shape. So for example, on the Eiffel Tower, I did simple grid work, right? You could use that with a walking foot as well. I think Jackie Gehring has an incredible book on quilting with a walking foot. So if you have a domestic and you want to be a little creative with your quilting, a walking foot can do wonders to create just really clean finishes. So the way I approached the quilting was, well, I can map out an area on my Handy Quilter and input a design. Let me see if that will work. And I have to confess, there were a couple times that I messed up and I had to unstitch, and that's never really fun, right? But the whole purpose of it was to try to give some element, I don't know if you can see, it's so hard to see, some element of depth with the quilting. So in particular, I think what drove me to even try to do custom quilting on this piece was when you look at the architecture, in Paris, like the Sacré-Cœur, which is the basilica in Montmartre, the stone itself has so much detail. Notre Dame has so much detail in the stonework. And although I wanted it to be something that could be finished in a workshop, I thought, well, maybe the quilting can add some of the detail in the structure without a student having to kind of sew it in, right? So that's kind of like where it was born for me to sort of stretch myself with the quilting. And I learned so much. I learned so much. A fun little detail that I did too was my little Tinkerbell. So I don't know how many of you know, but there's a Disneyland Paris. And I've never been. So on the last day, we're a few of us from the workshop are planning to go. And so I thought, you know, the Eiffel Tower, when the sun sets, starts to twinkle. And I thought, wouldn't it be cute if like Tinkerbell touches it and it lights up? So I just did a simple applique improvisationally, and I used some silk metallic threads from some friends that has sent me some thread from Paris. Actually, that was a serendipitous thing. And then I did a little hidden Mickey at the, let me see, at the bottom of the arc. Very simple, you know, big stitching. So I hope that answers your question, friends. No, you don't have to do super detailed quilting. Simple quilting that brings you joy and adds a little detail will definitely bring your quilt to life. Thank you, Kate, for your question. That was such a great question. All right, any other questions, honey?
Asked, do you make it with your hand or use a machine?
Both. So this is a long arm is basically a big sewing machine on a frame. And so some of it was with ruler work where you use a ruler and you move the machine. Some of it you computerize. Okay, I'm back. Some of it it is computerized, so you use your hands, but this is not free motion quilting, if that's the question. I'm not very good at free motion quilting, nor did I feel confident enough to do free motion quilting. So most of this is either ruler work or setting parameters so that I could input designs and then Pro Stitcher would stitch it out. So I hope that answers it. Let's see, what a great idea to add. Thank you, friends. So there's lots of customization you could do on your own quilt. So there was a hot minute where I wanted to add like a little coffee table with some coffee and some macaroons, right? Someone asked, I think, about the design. Oh, pause due to poor connection. Okay, we're back. The internet connection is terrible. Someone asked about color. So I want to talk about that really quick. I'd spoken really briefly about how I like complex subjects with a limited color palette, right? And so in thinking about different color palettes, I was really drawn to the wallpaper in Marie Antoinette's bedroom. So when we go to Versailles, I'll take the quilt and I'll show you. But the backing of this quilt is actually the source of inspiration for the color palette. So this is a replica of the wallpaper in Marie Antoinette's bedroom at Versailles. And this is where I pulled the colors from for this. So I have a little bit of the pale color, which is what Montmartre is, the pale color. You have the pink. Oh, poor connection. Sorry, my internet is being terrible today. So this is where I pulled the color palette from. I needed reds, yellows, and blues. Those are essentially the three colors used in this quilt. Now, for the binding, what I did was I wanted like a toile, like a French toile, which are typically white with pale blue or red or pink landscapes. And so I found this toile, which is like a vintage engraving of the Versailles Gardens. And so the binding, I don't know if you can see, the binding is actually a map of the Versailles Gardens. And I thought it was a good complement to the front without taking too much or being too distracting. But then you have the Marie Antoinette's background. Now, some very exciting news. Oh no, again. Sorry, my internet is so spotty. Is everyone on? So some very exciting news. Starting tomorrow, tonight at midnight, I will be offering for limited time, for those who are interested, backing and binding of the Marie Antoinette's wallpaper and the Versailles binding. Oh, people are logging back in. So the exciting announcement is that for a limited amount, there will be pre-orders for the backing of the Marie Antoinette fabric and the binding that is the Versailles. Oh, your live video ended.
Go back.
Okay, we're gonna go back.
I told everybody there's thunderstorms. Tell them there's thunderstorms right now. You're on Facebook.
I'm on Facebook.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and
there's a thunderstorm happening here. Oh. Hi, friends. I don't know if people can see me here on Instagram. Am I coming up on Facebook and YouTube? Is it still on?
Yeah.
It is still on. Okay. How about Instagram? Am I?
Log back in.
No. Let's try again. Let's try again here. Sorry, friends. The weather is so poor. We're having thunderstorms.
Yeah, Facebook says we're still here. Say hi, Roseanne.
Hi, friends. Hi,
Melissa.
Roseanne. Oh, man. Tell you the internet's is not.
Roseanne and Melissa can see you, Sherry.
Hi, Sherry. Hi, Roseanne. Okay, let's try here on Instagram again to go live. Thank you for your patience, friends. 3, 2, 1. Checking the connection. Hi, friends. Can you see me? There are thunderstorms right around my house. Go figure. It never rains here in California. But today we have thunderstorms. So the exciting news, I don't know if anybody is on, but the exciting news is that for a limited time, I will be able to offer the backing of the Marie Antoinette, backing with binding of the Versailles Gardens for those interested. The pre-orders will start tonight at midnight, so starting tomorrow, and then they will be shipped out mid to end of November. So those will be available on my website starting tomorrow. And I'm also going to add a sort of mini finishing kit where you will get a 10 by 10 inch square with the thread and the needle to make a custom label. And there will be a small tutorial for that in the kit. So you will get the backing and this binding and what you need to make a triangle label for those interested. So there will be a small quantity of those offered, and they will be available starting tomorrow, and then pre-orders go, and then they will be shipped out mid-November, the end of November, because it's just me and my husband and my boys. Like it's just us doing all the things. So I get back from Paris on the 10th, and then I will hop on in getting the backings and the bindings to those who have pre-ordered. So, pardon? Oh yeah, we've been working like crazy to get kits out. Thank you so much to everyone who has ordered a kit. I have one here with me to show you. Again, I'm so sorry that the internet is so poor with the thunderstorms right outside our window. So I wanted to give you a tour of the kit. So I really try as much as possible to, the other label you have on the quilt with your logo, where did you get those from? Kate Blash. So I ordered those from like about 3 or 4 years ago. They're woven custom labels. I want to say they're from Custom Labels for You or something like that. There are lots of companies, and actually you can order samples of labels and they will send them to you and you can pick what you want. I ordered about, I think 100, well, like 500 about 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm still using them. So it's just a custom label that I add to my quilts. I thought, and I asked my husband, I was like, do you think I should make labels for quilty friends to add to their quilts? So we'll see. So let's have a tour. You're welcome, Kate. Let's have a tour of what's in the kit. So I put a lot of love into kits. This kit in particular, I've never done a kit quite as robust as this one. I really wanted whoever got a kit to have everything they would need to make all of the components of this quilt and actually have some choice. So I actually include all of the materials you would need to make any of the 3 techniques, whether that's raw edge applique, sew in applique, or edge turn starch applique. You have all of the materials for all 3 techniques because I wanted quilters to kind of taste and try the different techniques and then have a choice to either use a combination of the techniques or just one technique or all 3, but you have everything you need in the kit, right? Because sometimes you think, oh, I have everything I need, and then you go and look and you're like, oh shoot, I don't have this one thing. So that's what I wanted. So the first is a little welcome letter with the QR codes to the tutorials that talks a little bit about the kit, followed by, I don't even know where to start. Okay, so there's the paper pattern, right? So it's a big girl. She's 92 pages, and that's the case with most high detail foundation paper piecing patterns. They're quite robust. They have to be single-sided because, of course, you have templates that you need to cut out. So it's a full color 8.5 by 11 paper template. Next, we have the fabric. And I really go out of my way to label and organize the fabric because early on when I would get kits, I'd just get like a big old packet of fabric and I didn't know what color was which. And so this is something I do out of love so that you know exactly what color is what and you can see all of the fabric intended. And these are the colors that I used for my quilt as well. These are Moda Bella Solids. Those are some of my favorite. Okay. Now let's talk about the goodies. So you're going to have 1 yard of sew-in interfacing, non-fusible. You're also going to have 10 sheets of fusible webbing in case you want to do the raw edge applique. And there are some places on this quilt, which I should probably put back up. There are some places on this quilt where I would recommend doing raw edge instead of maybe another technique, or it would just be easier, like the cafe component, right? You probably want to use raw edge instead of sew in or needle turn because then it's a little harder to achieve. So you have 10 sheets of fusible interfacing. If you wanted to do all the applique in fusible in raw edge, you could. There's enough in there for that. Then you have
Love how you label the fabric.
Thank you, friends. Thank you, friends. That's thank you how you labeled the fabric was the comment. It's one of those things where it takes more time on our part, but I think that it really benefits quilters. So it's kind of one of those things where you wanna do that. Okay, then it's the edge turned applique mini kit in the kit. So you have 10 pages of freezer paper, followed by a micro dot glue applicator, which we created here. Edge turned applique starch with a specialty, what do you call this? Paintbrush. And some little tools like a little pencil and a seam ripper. That can be really helpful when you are working, just to have all the tools there. Then our friends at Wonderful Specialty Threads, I asked them for a custom kit for the colors custom thread pack for the colors in this quilt. So this is the custom thread pack for this kit. This is Deco Bob 80 weight poly thread, which if any of you have been in my classes, you know that I absolutely love. I quilted this with 80 weight Deco Bob. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted the quilting to be present but not super dominant. So you'll see like the Arc of Triumph, right? There's quite a bit of detail, but it doesn't take away from the piecing because the 80 weight poly thread just gives it a little bit of a footprint. Now I wanted to say something really, really fun. So I did this fleur de lis, right? Right in the Arc of Triumph. And there's a little bee there. I don't know if you can see that little bee. So a student that will be, a quilter who will be at the workshop in Paris said to me, well, the fleur de lis was the symbol for the monarchy before the French Revolution. And once Napoleon came into power and then the French Revolution dismantled the French monarchy, the bee became the symbol of France. And I had no idea. So then I added a little bee in homage to the incredible French Revolution. All that to say that I used Deco Bob to quilt this. And you can see, even though there's a lot of high detail quilting in Notre Dame, it doesn't take away from the piecing because it has a very narrow footprint. Okay. All right. Let's see. Any other questions, honey?
There, shout outs to Deco Bob. Yay, Deco Bob.
Yeah, wonderful is wonderful, which is why I've chosen to work with them. They're pretty fantastic. Okay, then there are some stickers. So I got some custom stickers of the project that are included in your kit. Oh, there's also a needle for the Deco Bob, which is a 7D10 needle. I say this a lot, a new needle can be the biggest impact in your sewing. So when you start this project, put in a fresh needle in your machine. Your sewing experience will be a lot more enjoyable. Okay, then what I did was include two non-stick surfaces. One is a non-stick Teflon pressing sheet and a silicone fusing mat. These work together when you have the fusible webbing or you're working with the glue. So those are included in it. And then finally, this is just a little something that I've included in all of my kits. It's not a part of the listing or even something that you really pay for, but it's just a little something that I give, which is a project bag that you can stick all of your project in. And oh, poor connection again.
Oh, no.
Can kit and backings be shipped? Sorry, we have a thunderstorm and the connection is coming in and out. Can the kit and backing kit be shipped together by Rooster Quilter? I wish. So the thing is that because it's just me and my staff of my husband and my boys, and sometimes my mom, I have to do things in stages. So kits are actually ready to go out, I'd say next week, right, honey? Mm-hmm. Yeah, next week. We've cut everything, bagged everything. So for the backing and the binding, which was the big announcement, but because the internet has gone out like a bazillion times, the big announcement was I will be offering for a limited time pre-orders for the Marie Antoinette, let me show it, the Marie Antoinette, what is it called? Wallpaper backing, and then the Versailles toile, binding.
Say you're welcome, Rooster.
You're welcome, Rooster. Thank you. So they can't be shipped together. I know shipping is a nightmare right now. But the whole point is whoever does the pre-orders, then there's a cutoff pre-order date. It'll probably be November 15 will be the cutoff date for pre-orders. And then shipments will probably go out at the end of November for this. So you're going to get 5 yards of the Marie Antoinette wallpaper. That's the backing for this piece. And then I think I'm going to give a yard of this. It's always better to have a little extra. And then there will be a label, a mini label kit with 1 10-inch square of the pink that I included. I don't know if it's... So you're going to get 1 10-inch square and then some of the pearl cotton of Wonderfill, which is what I used here, along with the specialty needle that goes with the thread. So those will be on my website by the end of the day. I had hoped to do it by the time we did this, but life happens. You have to feed your children. and then time was gone. Any other questions? I feel like I've been sharing a lot. The internet has gone in and out a whole bunch. This was a project that I never anticipated would be so fun to make. There have been so many projects, some of my show quilts that are done from a place of grief or overcoming. This one was just pure fun. Like the geometric shape, sewing the geometric shapes, the little hand stitching of the flowers. So I also did some little pearl, little French knots for little flower blossoms. So there's a lot of potential for hand stitching in between. Yes.
Shout out to Rondi. She's exploding from excitement.
Oh, yay, Rondi, good.
And when is the workshop in California?
Shoot, so the workshop in California is for Road to California. I was only going to do 1 class, it filled up. They opened up another class, that filled up, and there's a waiting list for that. So I'm hoping sometime next year there'll be another class in locally that I can offer the Paris Kit workshop for. So unfortunately it's full, but we'll make plans for something else in the future. Yes.
Will that be all in the kit? All of the different stitching you've done?
All of the different stitching?
As Susie Miley, what she means.
So Susie Miley, what do you mean the different stitching? What's in the kit is to construct the quilt top, right?
Sound went out.
Sound went out. Friends, can you hear me?
Check in.
Hello, check in. Can someone give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? No. Can someone tell me if you can hear me?
Carissa asks, what is your next project? Facebook is up.
Facebook is up? Oh, Instagram has been...
Instagram is...
Friends, can you hear me on...
We're losing it.
Okay, Rooster. Thank you, Rooster. Oh my gosh. My next project... I can hear you. Thank you, Debzido. Thank you, Quilting Hormiga. Yes, it went out while you were discussing the workshop. Oh, so I will be giving 2 full workshops at Road to California in Ontario in January. And then for right now, that's the only currently planned Paris quilt class, but my hope is to have one sometime in the next year. So we'll see what exciting. If you want to keep up to date, a good place would be to join my email list on my website. Kind of everyone does that, right? But it really is the best. I missed what you said about California. Oh, that both of my classes are full at Road to California, but my hope is to have classes coming the next coming year for my Paris quilt. So the stitching. So in the kit, you have everything you need to make the quilt top. If you want inspiration for how to quilt it, you're welcome to look at my pictures on Instagram or Facebook about how I went about quilting it. Essentially what I did, friends, was every single shape had a different quilting motif on it. And because it's a cityscape, it actually lent to creating some depth. So the way you could go about stitching it is simply thinking every shape will have its own motif in it. Or if that's too daunting, then you can just stick to straight lines. That would work perfectly. That's actually how I was going to quilt it. But then I just got too excited and kind of started playing. Yes.
Are you going to do the same as Road with different things? And what is your next project?
The Road question? the road project will be this Paris kit. So that will be the Road to California class, will be 2 classes of the Paris kit. Yeah, you can purchase the kit and try on your own. I have QR codes and lots of tools online for you to finish it. It's not a super challenge. This is not very intricate applique. If anything, the whole purpose of the applique was to add sort of elegance to the curves of the architecture. That's essentially it. This isn't like art quilting with fine, detailed applique. It was just to have the curves be, as elegant as possible. So for example, I really wanted the curves in Notre Dame to be more intact than, I could FPP the hell out of those, but it would take like 1,000 stitches to create that, and that's unnecessary. So I think FPP applique was just the great complement to create these curves. And so it's very basic applique. It's not, super complex applique to achieve this.
Question is, are you going to do a series?
Oh, a series. That's such a great question. My Capturing Landscape series wasn't intended as a series, and then it became a series. So I've started with this one. There will be a second. And it's just so fun sometimes to work in a series unexpectedly. So I know for sure there will be one for Bavaria, Germany. I will be in Germany next November, giving a workshop there with German quilters and translation, because I don't speak a lick of German. I know how to say I love you, so maybe I should say Germany, I love you. I don't know. Bavaria, I love you. Bavaria, ich liebe dich. That's all I know. So there will be a Germany one.
We have people here from Deutschland.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Say
auf Wiedersehen.
Boomy, they're saying.
So there might be one for Sweden in April. So there may be 3. My issue is always time. There are folks that talk about like sojo and losing their sojo. Thank goodness I haven't had that issue. My issue is one of time. So I have all of these ideas I wish I could execute in a timely manner and share with you all. So for now it's 1, for sure 2, possibly 3. I don't know, Gus. Maybe we'll go to the UK or Italy or Venice or something. I don't know. But, I just kind of, I go with what life presents me at the time and try to live a life that is purposeful and seek for my designs to be ones that are meaningful. And I love designs that ground us to place and story and who we are as people, which is why I love portrait work as well. So I don't know. I think so, but we'll see.
Brazil.
Yes! Eu amo Brasil. Eu falo pouquinho do Brasil.
San Francisco would be wonderful.
San Francisco would be great. New York would be great. Maybe some California places, some United States places. Okay, friends, I've had you for an hour with many internet breaks in between. I don't know how that's going to work in the upload. Any last questions before I say goodbye? Thank you so much for honoring me with the privilege of your time this afternoon to talk a little bit about this project. Again, for those interested, for a limited time, there will be pre-orders on the Marie Antoinette backing and the Versailles Garden binding with a small label kit.
First time you're excited.
Then this is the first time I've ever offered like backing. I think I've spoken previously how, because the front of my quilts are solids, I really like to be intentional with the backing, with sort of this contradictory aesthetic, but it's complementary in its palette. So this is the first time I'm offering backing, so we'll see how it goes. Right, babe? Yeah. But for those who pre-order up to November 15, then pre-orders will close, and then hopefully they'll be out by the end of November, definitely by December. So you're going to get the Marie Antoinette backing with the binding and fabric to make your label with the pearl cotton thread and needle to make that. That was That's a lot of info, honey. I don't know. So we went over the kit. We went over the project. I really hope that this was informative to you. I'm available. I try to be as available on Instagram and messaging as possible. If you have any questions or you're curious, please feel free to reach out. I do my best to try to answer emails, but I'm kind of flooded with emails at the moment. Thank you for your time, and thank you for allowing me to share a little bit about my story. Any last questions that you see? Honey, do you see any questions? Okay. Thank you, friends, and it's not goodbye, it's till next time. So see you next time.